Today, I'm going to give you a brief tutorial on how to use the Clone Stamp tool in Adobe Photoshop Elements to edit entire objects out of your photos. This is a useful tool for fixing minor imperfections in your photographs. First, we need to open Adobe Photoshop Elements. Do this by taking your mouse, bringing it down to your Start menu, going over to All Programs, and locating Adobe Photoshop Elements 7 from the Start menu. In my case, it's at the top of the second column. Click. Today we'll be using Adobe Photoshop Elements 7. There are other versions available, but the method for using the Clone Stamp tool is similar with all of them. The first thing you're going to want to do when you're confronted with this screen is click on the Edit button, and that is a left click. It's going to take a moment for this to load. In this case, we're going to be editing a photograph by removing a minor element from the background using the Clone Stamp tool. I have a photograph of my 3 children and their daycare provider, Marcella, that I've always loved. But unfortunately, as you'll see in a moment, in the corner of the photo there are some messy-looking hanging balloons, and there's also a hanging balloon string that runs right in front of the main photo. We're going to do what we can to edit those out, simply and easily. Now the first thing you're going to do, once you get to this point, is navigate up to the File menu and open the picture that you want to work with. Navigate down to the Open option and left click. In my case, I've located the picture that we're going to edit on our desktop. It's right here, labeled Marcella and Kids Before. I'm going to left click on that and then left click on Open. That should open the photograph. Now you'll notice this is a very nicely framed photo, but we have some messy elements in it. We have this balloon string hanging right in the front, obscuring one of the faces here. This is my son Justin. And in the background we have these balloon-style decorations and these hanging strings. Now these are all sort of messy elements that make this photo a little less than perfect for framing. So we're going to see what we can do to remove some of these. Now the first tool that I want everyone to be familiar with when manipulating your photographs is the quick zoom. This will be an easy way to zoom in and out of the photograph to make sure that you're getting the best view to do your edits. What you're going to want to do is on your keyboard hold down the Alt button and then move your scroll wheel up and down. This will zoom your photo in and out. Now it's a little slow on this computer, but that should always give you a good view of what you are trying to edit. In this case, for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to edit out this section of balloons and strings in the corner. To do this, we're going to use a tool called the Clone Stamp tool. Now if you look over here on this side where all of your tools are located, you have a small image of a stamp. This is the Clone Stamp tool. You can select it and then use that tool to clone areas of your photograph and then stamp those cloned areas onto other portions of your photograph. The way that you do this, you'll notice we have a small dot on the screen where our cursor is. By holding down the Alt button, that dot changes into a crosshairs icon. While holding down the Alt key, this crosshairs icon is what you will use to select the portion of the picture that you wish to clone. In this case, you'll notice near these balloons we have a gray wall. The area nearest the balloon is going to be the portion of the wall that matches the lighting that we need the most. So I'm going to first hold down the Alt key and zoom in to get a better look at what we're going to edit out. Now before we actually begin using the Clone Stamp tool, I'd like you to take a look at this area here above the photograph. This small area here that says size, by clicking on that you can use a slider to change the size of the area that you're going to sample with your Clone Stamp tool. Now we have other options here where you can check the opacity, meaning how dark or how opaque the area that you clone and stamp are going to be, but for right now we're going to leave that at 100. You can also change several features here to change the quality of your clone stamp, but we're going to leave it at normal. As far as size goes, we want to be fairly precise with this, because if we sample too large an area, it's going to clip portions of, let's say, this ear over here, or we might actually even get portions of the string that we're looking to delete. So let's go ahead and keep this area relatively small. Now, navigate your icon over to the gray field that you want to use to sample, and then hold down the Alt button, giving you your crosshairs, and left click. That samples the gray area. When you then move your cursor over to the area that you wish to stamp over, and then left click again, you can actually erase the string using the clone stamp tool. Now in this case you can see we're working with a very small area here. If we change the size, that gives us a larger circle from which to work. So again, hold down the Alt key to clone, and then left click to stamp. And by that method, you can erase entire portions of this balloon string, replacing it with a portion of the gray wall that looks very similar in color and tone to what would naturally be behind that balloon if it were not there. Now as you move on, you're going to want to continually resample areas of the background to make sure that the background that you're using continues to mesh well with what you're looking to get rid of. Sample, delete. Now you'll notice as we get down close to the shoulder here, we're actually sampling, we're actually pasting over portions of the shoulder. And you'll notice too, when using the clone stamp tool, it doesn't create a hard barrier around the edge of the stamp. It softens and tries to blend it in with the background. This is a good tool, but it also creates, near the edges, these blurry spots. So let's see what we can do to actually use this clone stamp tool to repair this blur that we've created on the shirt. First, we're going to use the Alt scroll wheel option to zoom in tight on this shirt. Now you'll notice right next to the area that we've blurred out, we do have a nice sample of this black shirt right here. I'm going to try to get very specific, bring the size of the clone stamp tool down, and actually sample this portion of the shirt and stamp it right back over this portion in an attempt to restore that dark line. Sample, stamp. Now while it's not perfect, you can see we've restored the dark exterior edge. Now if we wanted to get really specific, we could zoom in very close and repeat this process, clone stamp, restore, to get rid of all of the small imperfections in here. For now, for the purposes of this tutorial, we will not. So again, I'm zooming out, and you can see from far away, especially once we resample this photograph to an appropriate size for printing out, it's very difficult to see where the edit was made. So again, now that we've discussed the basic tools that we're going to use here, I'm going to use those same tools to quickly get rid of a larger portion of these balloon strings. Again, I'm sampling and stamping. Sampling and stamping. It's a slow process, but one that yields pretty impressive results when you're done. Now as you can see, this looks pretty good. If you look very close, you can still see a certain color discoloration between where the stamp was and where it was not, because light continually gradients from dark to light in a very smooth way, and what we have done here does not quite match the subtlety found in the original photograph. So one last thing that we can do in order to try to make this a little bit more natural looking is we can go down here to what's known as the blur tool, and the blur tool basically blends everything together in sort of a smear. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bring the size of the blur tool up quite a bit, and then, well, that's much too large. Huh. That's about what we're looking for there. And we're going to use the blur tool by holding down the left button to just run over the space between what you have edited and what you have not, to try to blend those two things together. It's a very subtle effect, but when done correctly, makes it very difficult to tell that an edit has been done. Now that's enough for the purposes of this tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and zoom this out and take a look at our work. Again, this can be done on all of the balloons in this area. It can be done on the string that runs in front of the face, but as you can imagine, what you would need to do in this case is sample these hair textures and paste them directly over. It's very subtle work, but with patience, you can make a good photo into a great photo using the clone stamp tool followed by the blur tool. Hopefully that this has been useful to you, and this will aid you in making your photos better in the future. Thank you for watching. Oh, and before we finish, just to finish everything out, once you have everything where you need it, you can navigate down from the File menu to Save As. I'm going to go ahead and name this Marcella and Kids After. Click Save on the desktop, and now, in this case, I'm going to save it at the maximum resolution. And now, as I minimize this, you can see in addition to our original photo, we have the saved photo there that we can click on and open. And see, there we have the edited photo with these portions of the balloon strings edited out. If you'll view my webpage, you'll notice you can actually, in the photo editing section, you'll see the finished product of this, where I have actually removed the remainder of this string and all of these items in the background, and I hope you'll agree that it has made a dramatic improvement to the photos. Well, thank you very much for watching my tutorial, and hopefully it was useful to you and your future photo editing projects.